Well, just when you thought that the Capitals were going to drop two in a row, Ilya Samsonov says nay, and Garnet Hathaway says yay as they get a win over the Kings.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Capitals. I am your host, as always, the insider to the insiders, Tyler Kuehl. The Washington Capitals have hit double digits on wins this season, 10-5 after their win over the Los Angeles Kings last night in still the Staples Center for now, not until Christmas, but that's another story for a different day. Hello, everybody. Yes, it is another early morning. I've already chugged down the cup of coffee, and it'll probably settle in about 10 to 15 minutes, and that's when things will get a little weird. Anyways, I got to say, first of all, thank you all very much for making Locked On Capitals your first listen and first watch today and every day. You can obviously listen to us on your favorite podcast platforms, wherever you get your podcasts. Then again, you guys know that because you're listening. Also, if you are listening and you feel like you want to see my arms wail around and see my really odd facial expressions, according to some people, check us out on the Locked On Capitals YouTube channel. We're going to get to all about the game last night against the LA Kings, the nail biter that it was, au contraire. Well, I'll say au contraire to Anaheim last night or the night before, because that was an overtime game. But you know what I mean, in terms of literally nobody scoring forever, it seemed like. But also the fact of the matter is we're going to also talk about some injury updates as well. And of course, the Kuehl Kaps of the night later on. So first, Washington wins 2-0. Big win. Big win for the Caps because back-to-backs are always tough. Back-to-backs in California are tough. Back-to-backs in California when the California teams are good is even tougher. So yes, you're right. When we did the show yesterday, we had Sarah Avampado on from the Locked On LA Kings podcast, and we all agreed that, you know what, the Kings are probably going to win this one. They are rested. They are playing well. They have this massively long point streak heading in. So yes, the table was set for the Caps to kind of stumble out. Well, that did not happen by any stretch of the imagination. But snapped the Kings point streak, which was, I forgot how far along they were. Was it 8 straight games? 8 straight games with points for the Los Angeles Kings, if I'm not mistaken. And the game started off hard and heavy. It was, both teams were getting chances pretty quickly. Washington, Tom Wilson had that great chance right off the hop and had to make a goal line stand to the Kings. The Kings ended up out shooting Washington 14-9 in the first period. And you really thought, man, the Kings are coming out hard, and this is exactly what you expect out of a back-to-back. You expect, your top team, even though they may be one of the best in the not just the division but in the league, to kind of stumble up against a good team when you're having played 24 hours previously. So it just was shaping up to be this game where you were really certain that the Caps were going to not get blown out, but the way the Kings were getting chances early was this could be trouble if the Caps fall behind. However, Ilya Samsonov was a real breath of fresh air in the game because he made first couple saves, kind of just getting a feel for the puck. But then after that, he started making some big stops. Even in the second period where Washington did get the betterment of the chances, shots 11-7 in that second period, he made those huge saves, made that big save, of course, on Adrian Kempe early on in the third period when the game just got wide open because both teams, it was scoreless after 40 minutes of play. And for me, love it. Jonathan Quick obviously was really good. Remember, we talked with Avampado about it the day prior and before the game. We said, wow, Jonathan Quick is back to form, dare we say. And he looked up to par. He looked real good, looked calm, and looked like he was 7 years ago, the last time this team won a Stanley Cup. So, this game for me was very fun to watch because I myself, goaltending guy, I like watching teams have to work to score goals. Not like shots are 19-21, but that's why this game was so much fun. Shots ended up being 38-34 in favor of Washington because in the third period, the Caps ended up out shooting LA 18-13. Guys, I see 18-13 points in a basketball quarter, let alone shots on goal in a National Hockey League game, especially even though we always talk about how wide open the first half of the season is or the first couple months of the season is. Yeah, business picked up in the final 20 minutes. We mentioned the save on Adrian Kempe by Samsonov, and then the nice save on Victor Arvidsson as well. Ilya Samsonov really earned the respect, I think, of a lot of people because it seemed like he was always going to get the lesser men of the teams because he is right now, definitively, based on the amount of time he's played, number 2. 1A, 1B isn't really the vocabulary right now for Peter Laviolette. Vanecek's number 1, and Sammy's number 2. But the way Samsonov played tonight, that's going to give him some brownie points here heading in as the season wears on when you're going to need him to play maybe a couple more times a week or maybe another couple more times a month the way he played tonight. 34 save shutout for Samsonov because he stopped all 13 in that third period as well. It seemed like we were heading for another overtime. Scoreless overtime, guys. Oh, my gosh. Scoreless into overtime, not scoreless overtime. Nobody likes a dumb shootout. But I was like, oh, I'm so ready for this because listen, yes, the Caps are probably going to lose in overtime based on the fact that they play a good 60-minute hockey game. Just the extra 5 minutes is where their downfall is. But that's my point is that this was going to be a fun, entertaining game the way things were going. So when the game started to pick up towards the end, you thought, someone's got to score, right? Someone's got to score. And that's when Johnny Carlson has the puck at the right point and he sees traffic get in front of the Jonathan Quick. And what does he see? First of all, Jonathan Quick, we mentioned how he's kind of back to his old style. Well, one of the things that made him famous and at the same time kind of caused his career to take a little bit of a downturn because people started to realize what he's doing. He starts coming out of the net on the point shot. The incoming alleged point shot really challenges the shooter. And Garnet Hathaway's like, I got a wide open net over here. Johnny Carlson realizes it, sees around the bodies, fires a hard slap pass that just bounces off Hathaway and does this little fluttering thing. And Quick, of course, is so far out of the net, and Hathaway is so wide open that the puck is able to bounce in before even Daniel Sprong, who I swear was in the face-off circle when Carlson took this shot pass, ends up going in. Garnet Hathaway picks up the goal. And, of course, it was like a sigh of relief for the Capitals because just the way that game was going along. That goal was Hathaway's 4th. Couple more chances later, and then a couple minutes later for LA, they were not able to score because Garnet Hathaway just takes the puck in his own zone. Not necessarily the smartest thing to do, but he just fires it about 150 feet down the ice into the net, the empty net. His 2nd of the game, 5th of the season. Caps win this one 2-1. 2-1 victors. Boy, that could have been tough. That could have been really a tough loss because just the way that game was going, the fact that the Caps would have only gotten a point if that game had gone scoreless through 60. That would have been a tough one. The way Samsonov played in this one, it's good to see Garnet Hathaway get in there and get a couple goals to help the Caps win. Like I said, their 10th win of the season. They are now 10-2-5 on the year. Los Angeles kind of falls back just a hair. I don't even want to say like they fell off big time. That Pacific Division is kind of wonky, very wonky right now. They still sit 5th in the division, tied with Vegas with 18 points. Vegas does play tonight against Detroit. We'll get to those scores later on. But the Kings still aren't bad, guys. Jonathan Quick played a really good game. The only problem was the fact that Ilya Samsonov was pretty good too. 34 save shutout, guys. And I know what you're all saying. But it's his 2nd shutout of the season, guys. Yes, you're right, but let's be honest. That first one was not really impressive. It was a 16-save shutout against the Arizona Coyotes. I'm sorry, Zach Vucali's shutout was much more impressive than Ilya Samsonov's. So that's why I think this one was a huge game for him because, people kind of have started to throw their doubts his way because the way Vanecek is taking control of the net and the games that Samsonov has played in, while he has played well, they haven't really been the prime time matchups to really establish him as a top goaltender, let alone on his team, let alone in the entire league. So I think this was a good bounce back game for him. I expect the Capitals to kind of go with the same rotation as we head into the weekend, the Saturday against the Sharks, Sunday against Seattle. I would not be surprised if we see Vanecek Saturday and Samsonov on Sunday before coming back home next week. I like that setup a lot because we talked about it before. The Caps did not have a single back-to-back in October, so they didn't have to worry about who plays when, who plays where, how many games they play. So certainly a good start for Samsonov. And the thing is, when you haven't played for a little bit, sometimes you get a little shaky out of the gate. Only the real best backup goaltenders in the NHL were able to come in and play well. I remember a couple of years ago, Curtis McElhinney went on a ridiculous run with the Leafs back into Frederik Andersen. He had the best save percentage in the league, but I didn't think he played enough games to qualify for the Vezina or something like that. But he played well when he was called upon. Samsonov, while he did kind of back up Holtby there towards the end, he started to really get a lot of the chunk of the minutes, more of a 1B scenario. Now, so far, he's really been a solid number 2. But I think he's done well enough. I mean, he obviously picked up the win against Columbus last week. There is certainly an upside to him, and I think if you continue to give him playing time, he's going to continue to play well. But on the same token, as Laviolette likes to do, and Laviolette has said, you got to ride the hot hand. Now, I'm not saying that Samsonov with this win all of a sudden deserves the betterment of the starts this coming weekend. Vanacek, I just think, had a slight off night, and the good goaltenders, you go back to them if they had an off night. Now, Vanacek has a rough go against San Jose, and Caps win 6-5, or they lose on a couple bad goals, similar to what we saw against Anaheim. You're right. Samsonov may be playing one of these one-off nights coming up here. There's a good chance that may happen. But that's the good part of having 2 good goaltenders, right? It's not like, oh, crap, our starter's playing awfully, we are in trouble. It's the Capitals' case. It's like, well, VV's not playing the best, so Samsonov, you're in. It's when they're both playing bad is when things really go awry, and that's when you have yourself a Dallas Stars scenario, even though, yes, they did win last night, but that's not here nor there. So, big win for the Caps. They continue their nice little string of points they have put together. As of right now, they have had points in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight games, because their last regulation loss came against the Flyers back on November 6th. So a good little stretch they have going for them right now, heading into Saturday in San Jose. That game will be a 10:30 puck drop before a 9 o'clock puck drop in Seattle, because, hey, we're going to play at 6 o'clock in Pacific time because it makes it a little bit better, since it's a Sunday night, even though the rest of us, it's like, it's still 9 o'clock and we got to work Monday morning. Thanks, kids. Anyways, so good way to possibly go halfway through the trip. 3 points in the first 2 games in California. Listen, we're going to talk about this probably a couple, tomorrow too, is the fact that picking up 3 points in 2 games now in the West Coast trip is certainly important, because now we're back to the point where the California teams, guys, are no slouches. Maybe last year or 2 years ago, if you did that, well, that's expected. If you did not get, 4 points in 6 or 3 games in California, you're a failure, because those teams were not so good. Now they are, so it certainly makes it a little bit tougher to go on the Death Valley trip. On the other side here, we're going to talk about some of the injury updates, because something we really didn't get a whole lot of time to touch on yesterday, because there was some newsworthy stuff happening in the morning skate prior to the game against Anaheim. We'll touch on that here in just a moment before we get to our Kuehl Kaps later on in today's program. But guys, BetOnline is back and better than ever with a new web interface for the start of the NHL season. They have more props, odds, and lines than ever before, and BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the hockey action this season. Head to their new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit by using the promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON. You can do it in caps or all lowercase, no matter what you want to do. You got to do that, though, locked on to receive the bonus from basketball, football, baseball, boxing, UFC, Vegas casino games to the NHL. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline remains the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. So, injury news. Yes, obviously we keep talking about the big 3 that are out right now, Oshie, Mantha, and Backstrom. However, this week there's been some signs for optimism. One, Nick Dowd, who was placed on IR with a lower body injury, undisclosed, even though it was pretty obvious somewhere in his right leg. But he was skating on Tuesday, getting on the ice, participating in line rushes and the drills with the team, non-contact sweater, which is good to see, especially since the fact that, he just re-signed for a few more years. Good for him, first of all. And we talked about that earlier on this week, $1.3 million over the next, per year over the next 3 seasons after this year. And you know what? It's good to see him, because depth is going to be important for this team, and depth is important during this trip. And we have seen, obviously, Garrett Pallon, who scored his first NHL goal on Tuesday against the Ducks. Alexei Protas, holy moly, getting closer. The last couple of games, he's had some grade A chances. That guy's going to pot one. It was similar to Connor McMichael earlier on in the year. We kept seeing McMichael ring one off the post, get a chance in tight, get a big save on against him. Protas is going to score a goal here, and he's going to, obviously there are signs that players are going to start coming back into the Capitals lineup here, but I feel like the same thing with Protas scores, and we're going to see a couple more go behind him, or a couple more go for him. It'll be interesting here. But Nick Dowd back on the ice, which is good to see. Also, TJ Oshie was also in a non-contact sweater skating on Tuesday as well, which was au contraire to our report the day prior. So good to certainly see him back on the ice, at least with the hockey club, because Oshie he was having such a great run there towards the end. Of course, he had the hat trick against, who the heck was it against? It wasn't New Jersey, was it? I can't remember now. I have to go far back because there was a game against Detroit where he blocked the shot. And was it against Buffalo? No, it wasn't against Buffalo. Yes, it was against Buffalo. No, it was against Ottawa. Sorry. I'm like, which game was it again? Because unfortunately now we're getting to that point of the year where it's like, all right, how many games ago was that? Yeah, it was the game against Ottawa where he picked up the hat trick, the 4-point game. And then he blocks the shot the next game against Detroit, and he's been out ever since. So it's good to see him. I think he is obviously still nursing the foot. Last time we talked about it, he wasn't a walking boot. Obviously, he's skating, though, so certainly he's getting to rehab it. So you know what? He may be back sooner than later. I don't know if he'll be back before Thanksgiving. We'll obviously have to wait and see. Hockey players do heal at a very weird and odd rate, but that would be certainly important for the Caps to get him back sooner rather than later. Even though I think right now it's hard to say that the Capitals are playing poorly without him. Anthony Mantha is still recovering from shoulder surgery. He's still a few weeks away from that. Obviously, Backstrom has been skating, but he was not on the trip with the team out west. And I feel like he's getting closer, kids, but it's still hard for me to say before January 1st. But you know what? You know what's going to probably happen? Caps are going to come back from their West Coast trip, and he's going to join them for the first day of practice at MedStar. That's probably what's going to happen. Non-contact sweater, of course, because I know he's been skating. He's been skating in full equipment, and you're really hoping that sooner than later he gets back in the lineup. But once again, it's one of those things coming back from a hip injury that it's very difficult to be at full speed sooner than later. So I would still be under the inclination that, you know what, you keep him off to the side until he can go 110% and take a hit, because with a hip injury, it's not with, after going under hip surgery, it's very difficult to, yes, you can get back into skating shape and skate full speed. Great. Can you skate full speed, take a hit, have to be shifty, and still be effective without potentially re-aggravating that injury? That is where the concern is for Nicklas Backstrom. That's why I'm still okay with this team in January, maybe bringing him back in then. Unless, the team has a massive collapse before then. Because that is my thing as well, is that if this team had lost 4 in a row and was only getting points at 1 out of 6 games or something like that, you're right. I would be a little more concerned about getting the right players in there to help this team win some hockey games. However, knock on wood, this team does not have that problem at this moment. Once again, that is why I'm not really panicking about Nicklas Backstrom not being in the lineup right now. So we'll just have to obviously wait and see, keep our ears to the ground, because right now the team is playing well. The team's looking good. Samsonov is playing well. Vanacek, obviously, the little bit of a slip up on Tuesday against the Ducks, but everything right now is going well for the Caps, given their situation. Any other team, most teams in this league, and we're going to see with Florida coming up here with Sasha Barkov out for a little bit here. Some teams, when they lose their star players, I don't want to say they fall apart, but you can tell that there's not as much get up in their step. Their play starts to dwindle because of it. So the way this team has been able to respond with Oshie out of the lineup, with Backstrom not even playing a game yet, with Mantha not playing so well, and obviously Vanacek getting dinged up and having to bring up a goaltender from Hershey, Fucale coming in and doing well. Still kind of salty that he didn't get another game, but that's just me. I understand how the salary cap works. But that's the thing, is that this team has been able to be, dare I say the word, resilient given that the cards may have been stacked against them in some scenarios or another. And they've beaten some good teams as a result and had some close battles against other good teams as well. Now, you're right. They have not beaten Tampa once this season. They have yet to beat Florida this season. And so far, the Flyers have given them all the heck they can handle in the one game that they have played so far. Now, like I said, we're going to see how the next two games go. And then when they come back home, they get Montreal and Florida. And then they get Carolina for the first time on a Sunday afternoon, which is always a fun time to play a hockey game because Sunday afternoons, there's something called football that goes on, especially in Carolina. Well, they're in Charlotte and the Canes play in Raleigh, so maybe not. I don't know. And the Panthers really aren't that good, even though Cam Newton's. But anyways, regardless, those will be some interesting games when they come back to the Eastern Seaboard. So certainly get excited for that. And when these players come back as well, we'll take on the other side here. We're going to talk about the Kuehl Kaps of the night, obviously, get you caught up on the scores and kind of take a brief look ahead to the upcoming games, the remainder of the road trip of the Washington Capitals. We also do have a guest tomorrow we will tease to as well here on the other side here on Locked On Capitals. The other scores in the National Hockey League last night, only 3 games on tap, none of them starting before 9 o'clock, which I thought was still very dumb. But then again, all the games are out on the West Coast, Vancouver and Colorado. Vancouver's now 5-10-2 thanks to a penalty kill that is abysmal. Wasn't it like 6? I think I saw in the broadcast last night. I was watching that game before the Caps and Kings. Their penalty kill is like just over 60%. That was heading into the game last night. I think Colorado scored 3 goals on the power play? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 power play goals last night in the win against the Canucks. And the Canucks actually played a good game as well against Colorado. Just miserable their penalty kill is. And I talked to a couple people out west over there, and I asked them, like, is Green going to go? And they're like, no, it's hard because they like playing for Green. It could be Jim Benning. Even though Benning tried to bring in guys like Connor Garland and Jason Dickinson and tried to actually make this team better, but it just didn't quite pay off. Chicago picks up their 5th win of the season, beating the Seattle Kraken last night 4-2, even though Seattle got the betterment of the chances. And guys, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say this right now. Philip Grubauer is not as good as we all thought he was. People are like, but Tyler, he was a Vezina candidate last year. Well, guys, even though I give a lot of crap to Colorado's defense because I think they're all offensively minded for, now that they lost Ryan Graves back there. Yeah, the goaltending was good because they had a good team in front of them. And now that there is a subpar team in front of Philip Grubauer, we've realized that he is not a show stealer. And with that being said, not really a Vezina goaltender. But Tyler, what about if Andrei Vasilevsky went to Seattle? I thought Andrei Vasilevsky could have easily steal a few more games than Grubauer's played because, boy, Grubauer is getting a real good kind of kick in the rear here and a kind of a realization that maybe things are not as easy as he thought. Because, once again, Philip Grubauer, good goaltender in Washington, but look at the defense with Barry Trotz behind the bench. Good team in front of him in Colorado. I thought he did pretty well in that case, but here's the problem with that. It's very difficult to stop a puck when you're getting he only had 20 shots on goal too. Or 20 something or other. It was Seattle outshot Chicago last night pretty handily, and they still lost. I don't know if Grubauer's just in a funk right now or just not having a good time there, but he is not playing well. And that was the one concern I had when he got picked up. I'm like, oh, he's a good goaltender. Him and Chris Drieger both. And I'm like, well, I don't know. We'll see how good they really are behind teams that are a lot lesser because Chris Drieger had, a real good year last year with Florida, but that was his first really good year in the NHL. And Grubauer's had a couple good years in Colorado, but once again, you play behind a team that has the likes of McKinnon and Landeskog, and other teams are worrying about the players in front of them. And when they actually get a shot on goal, well, there are not too many grade A scoring chances. And Grubauer did look good in some games, but as we've seen so far, he's not really been the showstopper that we saw in Denver. So I hope the Kraken turn it around. That'll be obviously who the Caps play this coming Sunday. The Kraken at this moment are 4-11-1. San Jose, who the Caps get to see on Saturday night, obviously they played before then. But as of right now, they're 8-6-1, right behind the Kings with 17 points. Technically third to last in the Pacific Division. However, 5 points clear of the seventh place Vancouver Canucks. Yikes, kids. This is a division that is certainly fun to watch because between Calgary and San Jose, it's 3 through 6. There's a 4-point differential, and San Jose is only 6 points out of first place. Now, yes, things could widen up as we go along here towards the end of the season, towards even Thanksgiving and Christmas, but the Pacific Division's pretty tight, and the Ducks are right there towards the top, which is certainly good to see because, once again, when the California teams are good, especially in that kind of market out in LA, it makes things a little bit better in the National Hockey League and makes those West Coast trips actually worth watching. It's not like you just go out there and like, well, no point of staying up for these games because the Caps will kill them by 4. Because the last time this team made that trip, the California teams were not good at all. So certainly good to see exciting division out there. 10:30 once again, San Jose on Saturday, Sunday at 9 o'clock at Climate Pledge Arena, the place with 2 jumbotrons or 2 big trons. They're not really jumbotrons; they're just big ones. Anyways, at Climate Pledge Arena on Sunday. Let's jump on to the Kuehl Kaps of the night. First one I'm going to give to Johnny Carlson. 2 assists tonight, assisting on both of Hathaway's goals. Now has 11 assists on the season. Doesn't lead the team in that category, but does lead all defensemen in points, and has also had 5 points in the last 3 games. We were kind of concerned early on because he wasn't really picking up a whole lot of offensive output, and he was getting looks, but he was obviously, with the lack of defense, we all thought he's got to really focus on playing in his own zone, which for the most part he did. Now we're starting to see him play maybe a little bit more confident, a little bit more wide open. The Johnny Carlson that we all know and love, the Johnny Carlson that signed this big, long contract with Washington. Now, like I said, 5 points in the last 3 games and is really starting to find his groove. Now double digits in the helper category. Ilya Samsonov is I'll give him the second one. Is that 1 or 2 of the others? We'll put him at number 2 because it is his second shutout of the season, so we'll go with numbers in that case. 34 save shutout was fantastic in this hockey game. I think once again, playing on the second half of a back-to-back, pretty much the same lineup because we also forgot to mention Lars Eller was out of the lineup because of COVID protocol, so the lineup got a little bit shorter and a little bit younger, so he had to come up big a few times in the game. Like I said, those big saves against Arvidsson. Adrian Kempe had to make that big save in the third period. Really was sharp in this one and certainly looked calm and confident because that was a concern we had going into the season, given the fact that he lost the number 1 job to Vanacek in the preseason, but whenever he's been called upon, has been pretty darn solid and has given the team a chance to win this night a little bit more than what probably was expected of him. Big win for Samsonov, helping the Caps their 10th win. And the reason why they got their 10th win was because of 2 goals by Garnet Hathaway. 5 goals in the past 4 games for Hathaway. The guy is on fire. Obviously, Johnny Carlson helped him out there, an empty net goal and a nice deflection. The 2 goals for Hathaway in the 2-0 win. Solid win all around for Washington here. Like I said, a nice couple days off. Now you get San Jose on Saturday. You'll be well rested for that. Hopefully Lars Eller, the COVID protocol issues can get resolved by then. If not, we've obviously seen the pieces that can come into the lineup, Garrett Poulin, Alexei Janssen-Falby, or obviously Alexei Protas, who he's right there, kids. He is right there from scoring a goal, and I hope so he gets one soon here because that'd make him the 6th Capital this season to score his first NHL goal, which on a team that we all thought was so darn old that there would be no first whatsoever is quite a good sigh of relief and a good breath of fresh air. So that is it for this episode of Locked On Capitals, kids. We'll be back tomorrow with John Walton. Yes, sir. The radio play-by-play voice of the Caps is back with us to chat about the West Coast trip, how it's going for him not being there and whatnot, and also the fact just kind of update on how the team is doing as a whole. Thank you very much for watching and making us your first listen and watch of the day, Locked On Capitals. Now go make your second listen, Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. You can follow us on the Twitters, guys, at Locked On Caps. Follow me, the Inside of the Insiders, Tyler Kuehl, right there. You can see on the bottom right of your screen at TJKU29 on Twitter and Instagram. Puppy pics on Instagram, useless hockey nonsense on the Twitters. Thank you all very much for watching and listening to this episode of Locked On Capitals. We will see you all tomorrow.